A few years ago, this would have been asking a lot from a hearing aid, but today, this device, Oticon Zeal, promises a discreet fit, all-day battery life, and full wireless features. That sounds almost too good to be true, so let's take a closer look. In this video, we'll walk through my real-world experiences, objective lab testing from HearAdvisor, and we'll play sound files so you can hear Zeal with your own ears. All right, let's get started. Oticon Zeal launched in the US in 2026 with a slightly earlier release in other parts of the world in late 2025. And at least on paper, it addresses a lot of the long-standing trade-offs people have had to make with size, battery life, and wireless features. As you can see, it's much smaller than a typical receiver-in-canal hearing aid. But beyond discreetness, there's one other potential big advantage of this design. Our ears are actually incredibly sophisticated acoustic systems. The outer ear, or pinna, acts like a satellite dish, and this helps collect and shape sound before it enters our ear canals. That natural shaping helps with things like resonance, or you can think of it as speech clarity and localization. So when you place microphones inside the ear, instead of above it, like we have with Zeal, you're capturing sound more naturally, which helps preserve some of those benefits. What's more, Oticon is one of the early adopters with integrating AI into their hearing aid processing. So if you put all of that together, AI processing, natural hearing benefits, you potentially have a very powerful combination. We'll see how all of that plays out in our lab in just a bit. And before we get into the box, here are some product specs for Zeal. We'll touch on some of these more in just a moment, but it's worth noting that Zeal do not feature a telecoil. Rather, they focus on other wireless features like Bluetooth LE audio and Auracast. All right, with that out of the way, here's our scorecard for Zeal summarizing all of our testing. Overall, Zeal earned a hearing tracker score of 4.33 out of 5, which is excellent, and it puts it right there with many other prescription devices, including other Oticon products. Let's take a quick look at Zeal. Your provider will walk you through all of this, make sure you have the right ear tips, and go over cleaning and maintenance, so we'll keep this brief. The charging case feels well built, though it is on the slightly larger size. It's not exactly pocket size, but it will easily fit in your backpack or purse. You've got LED indicators, and the case itself provides up to 3 additional full charges. Placing Zeal into the charger isn't difficult, but there are designated left and right slots, so there's a small learning curve at first. Charging takes about 2 hours using the included USB-C cable and wall adapter. Now, one of the main talking points with Zeal are their size. They are impressively small and yet feel well built with an IP68 rating, and this means they offer excellent protection against moisture and debris. We'll talk more about that later, but this is actually critical given that these hearing aids basically live inside your ear. Another feature that might be jumping out to you is this tail-like extension. This is the antenna that makes all of the wireless communication and connection possible. Here's what they look like in my ear. Zeal sit almost completely in the ear, and as the antenna is mostly transparent, that is also very difficult to notice. Oticon has also included some nice tap controls, which I found to work reasonably well. They're not overly sensitive, and I would sometimes have to double tap again to get them to work, but compared to physical buttons, tap controls make a lot more sense here. With buttons, you are essentially pushing the hearing aid deeper into your ear every time when you press them, which isn't exactly comfortable. With tap controls, you avoid that entirely. All right, let's talk about wireless features and the Oticon companion app. Honestly, a few years ago, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. Small in-the-ear devices like Zeal didn't typically offer wireless features, or if they did, they were fairly limited. With Zeal, you get essentially the same Apple and Android app experience you'd expect with a traditional prescription hearing aid. You've got your standard volume control and program changes. There's also a 3-band EQ for deeper sound customization, and I like that Oticon includes a separate EQ for streamed audio as well. These 3 little dots are helpful as they give you quick access to additional features like remote microphone functionality and enabling Auracast. Something else, if you navigate to the Hearing Aids tab, you'll also find basics like battery status and Find My Hearing Aids, which is nothing new but always helpful. Overall, I found the app solid. It's not flashy and it may feel a bit minimal compared to some platforms with advanced health tracking, but it works reliably. And in my testing, and for most people, that's probably what matters most. If more advanced health features pique your interest, you may just want to look elsewhere. Okay, this is a good point to go back to something that we mentioned earlier. Because Zeal places the microphones inside your ears, they gain access to the natural acoustic benefits of your pinna. In theory, that should help them with things like speech understanding and spatial awareness. So let's see how all of that translates into actual performance. Now, we tested Zeal with our partner lab, HearAdvisor, using standardized objective tests designed to predict real-world performance for a common age-related hearing loss. Now, while that's a mouthful to say, it allows us to make more fair apples-to-apples comparisons across all devices. So here are Zeal's results across HearAdvisor's 5 sound quality metrics. Overall, Zeal earned an A sound grade, placing it among the top performing devices we've tested. And that's great, but it's also not entirely surprising given Oticon has a strong track record, especially when it comes to speech and noise performance. So the big takeaway is this: Zeal isn't just impressive for its size, it also holds its own from a performance standpoint too. And if you want to dig deeper into the testing and all of the data, you can check out HearAdvisor.com. Now let's listen to some sound samples recorded in the HearAdvisor lab. You'll hear a typical cafe environment, first without hearing aids, then with Zeal at an initial fit, and finally a professionally tuned setting. Use headphones and keep your volume consistent across all of these samples for the best results.
Did you hear the news last night?
No, I must have missed it.
Looks like we're finally getting a break. I mean, it's supposed to be sunny all weekend.
Oh, yeah? Perfect timing. Maybe I can finally get out there and do some yard work.
Yard? My mind went to breaking out the grill.
Well, that too. The lawn isn't going to cut itself, and the butcher could drive me a little crazy.
I guess that's true. I mean, I've been putting off staying in the deck, but this year may be the year.
Trees, bushes, deck. We'll just have to dream about the grill and the huge ice cold cooler.
Now let's listen to the streamed quality, starting with the original unprocessed music track. So what's the bottom line? Well, Oticon Zeal are genuinely impressive, and honestly, this is a good reminder of how far hearing aid technology has come. Again, a few years ago, getting this combination of size, battery life, and wireless features just wasn't realistic. So who are these devices for? Well, if you're looking for a nearly invisible hearing aid with strong sound performance and modern features, Zeal make a lot of sense. But there are some important limitations to understand. First, these are best suited for a mild to moderate, or in some cases, moderately severe hearing loss. At the extremes of those ranges and beyond, you may run into issues like limited amplification, meaning reduced high-frequency clarity and or feedback. You can push performance a bit further with custom molds, but that's an added cost and something you will need to discuss with your provider. In my experience, when someone is right on that edge, you often end up making considerable trade-offs for discreteness, and in many cases, another style, like a receiver and canal hearing aid, may simply be the better option in the long run. Here are some other key pros and cons to Oticon Zeal. First up, audio performance here is excellent. Both in real-world use and in lab testing, Oticon's processing is strong, and I had no issues programming these for a typical mild to moderate hearing loss. That said, I did notice some high frequency hiss and occasional distortion with louder sounds. Both can be addressed to some extent in the fitting, but it starts to highlight the amplification limitations I mentioned a moment ago. Next up, these are about as close to invisible as you can get, while still offering wireless features and all-day battery life. Now, one trade-off to this Pro is that they can be harder to handle, especially if you have limited dexterity and or low vision. I did struggle at times to get these in and out of my ears due to their smaller size. Next up is comfort. I found Zeal comfortable for extended wear compared to many instant fit devices, especially those you'll find in the OTC space. And these devices tend to cause pressure points and offer poor retention, and none of these were issues with Zeal. Now let's talk about some potential downsides. Because they sit deeper in your ear, they're more susceptible to wax and debris, which impacts microphone performance and charging reliability. This is manageable, but it requires consistent cleaning, which your provider should go over with you. Additionally, as I mentioned, there are some feedback and gain limitations. And I'm honestly not trying to be overly critical, as Zeal are very impressive given their size. Regardless, they will be more prone to feedback compared to other hearing aid styles, and depending on your hearing loss, you may run into limits with high frequency amplification. Last up, streaming is reliable without dropouts, but the sound quality is, let's say, just okay. It tends to sound thin and lacking in bass, which you may have noticed with those sound files a moment ago. You can improve it slightly with EQ and or ear tip changes, like custom molds, but don't expect high fidelity audio here. But that's it for today's video. If you want to learn more, you can check out our full written review at hearingtracker.com. And if you have tried these out, I'd be curious to know if you've had any unique experiences linked with the pros and cons that we just discussed. But thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.